Did you know Trump's net worth jumped by $600 million while he was president? Yeah, that's right, from $3.1 billion to $3.7 billion. But how did he manage to grow his wealth while in office? In this video, we're going to break down exactly how Trump's billionaire lifestyle changed during his presidency. From his lavish properties to his business dealings, we'll show you the inside scoop on the richest president in US history. Trump's real estate empire before the White House. All right, let's talk about Trump's real estate empire before he moved into the White House. This guy was already swimming in cash, like seriously loaded. We're talking billions, not just millions. His real estate game was on another level. Trump's portfolio was stacked with fancy hotels, golf courses, and skyscrapers all over the place. But the crown jewel, that's gotta be Trump Tower in New York City. This place is insane. Imagine walking into a building where everything's covered in gold. I'm talking gold elevators, gold fixtures, even gold toilets. The marble floors are so shiny you can see your reflection, and the views from up top, they'll make your jaw hit the floor. But Trump Tower ain't the only crazy property he owned. Let's talk about Mar-a-Lago. This place is basically a palace dropped right in the middle of Florida. It's got 126 rooms, a private beach, and even its own spa. Trump bought it back in 1985 for just $8 million, and now it's worth way more than that. Trump's real estate game wasn't just limited to the US either. He had properties all over the world. There's his golf resort in Scotland, with two 18-hole courses right on the coast. Then there's his hotel in Ireland, sitting pretty on 400 acres with a frickin' castle on the property. The dude even had plans for a Trump Tower in Moscow at one point. But here's where things get interesting. When Trump decided to run for president, he had to step back from his business. He couldn't be wheeling and dealing while sitting in the Oval Office, right? So he handed over control to his sons, Don Jr. and Eric. But don't think for a second that meant he was cutting ties completely. The big question is, how did this whole president gig affect Trump's bottom line? I mean, on one hand, being president is like the ultimate form of free advertising. Every time Trump visited one of his properties, it was all over the news. But on the flip side, some people started boycotting anything with the Trump name on it. And let's not forget about all those international deals that had to be put on hold. Trump had plans for hotels in China, office towers in India, and even a resort in Indonesia. But being president meant he couldn't pursue those deals anymore, at least not while he was in office. The Trump brand, more than just buildings. You might think Trump's wealth was all about his buildings, but that's just scratching the surface. The guy turned his name into a brand worth millions. He slapped Trump on everything he could think of. We're talking Trump steaks, Trump vodka, even Trump University. Yeah, that was actually a thing. But here's where it gets wild. Not everything with the Trump name was a hit. Some of these ventures flopped harder than a fish out of water. Trump steaks, gone faster than you can say well done. Trump vodka, couldn't even get the party started. And Trump University, that one ended up in a lawsuit. Ouch. But even with all these fails, the Trump brand was still raking in serious cash. How? Well, people were paying just to use his name on their buildings. Crazy, right? Trump would license his name to developers, and they'd slap it on their properties. He didn't even have to own the building, just let them use his name, and boom, instant cash. Now let's talk about The Apprentice. That TV show took Trump from rich guy to household name. He was already famous, but this made him a straight-up celebrity. And it wasn't just about the fame. Trump was making bank from this show. We're talking millions per episode. The catchphrase, "You're fired," became part of pop culture, and Trump's bank account was feeling the love. But becoming president, that changed everything for the Trump brand. Suddenly, his name wasn't just on buildings and failed products. It was on executive orders and in history books. Some people loved it, others hated it, but everyone was talking about it. The presidency gave Trump's brand a whole new level of exposure. His hotels started getting more attention. His golf courses were in the news all the time, but it wasn't all good press. Some folks started boycotting anything with the Trump name on it. Hotels took his name off their buildings. Even in New York City, where Trump made his name, some residents of Trump properties wanted to rebrand. And let's not forget about all the international deals that had to be put on hold. Trump had plans for hotels in China, office towers in India, and a resort in Indonesia. But being president meant he couldn't pursue those deals anymore, at least not while he was in office. So, was becoming president good or bad for the Trump brand? It's complicated. On one hand, it gave him more publicity than money could buy. On the other hand, it made his brand more controversial than ever. Some people saw the Trump name and thought luxury, others thought politics, and some just wanted nothing to do with it. In the end, the Trump brand became bigger than just buildings or products. It became a symbol, for better or worse, and that's something you can't put a price tag on. Well, unless you're Donald Trump, he'd probably find a way. The cost of running for president. Trump's run for president wasn't cheap, like at all. He dropped serious cash on his campaign, way more than most candidates. We're talking millions of his own money. But here's the thing, all that publicity, it was like free advertising for his brand. His name was everywhere. His hotels got way more attention. His golf courses were all over the news. People were talking about Trump properties 24/7. But it wasn't all good news. Some folks started boycotting anything with the Trump name on it. Hotels even took his name off their buildings. Trump had to give up his TV show The Apprentice when he ran for president. That was a big hit to his wallet. He was making millions per episode. Now that money was gone, and it wasn't just the show. Some of his business deals fell through because of the politics. But let's talk numbers. Trump spent over $66 million of his own cash on the campaign. That's a lot of money, even for a billionaire. He also loaned his campaign another $10 million. Some people say he spent even more, but it's hard to know for sure. The campaign wasn't just spending Trump's money. They raised over $333 million from donors. But a lot of that went right back into Trump businesses. They spent millions on Trump properties for events and stuff. So in a way, Trump was paying himself. But here's where it gets crazy. All that campaigning, it was like one big commercial for Trump's brand. His properties got more bookings, his merchandise sales went up. People were buying Make America Great Again hats like crazy. So yeah, he spent a lot, but he might have made even more. Some of Trump's international deals had to be put on hold when he became president. He had plans for hotels in China, office towers in India, and a resort in Indonesia. All that potential money, gone, at least for now. Becoming president, the financial sacrifice. After winning the election, Trump had to make some big changes. He was supposed to give up control of his business empire. That's a pretty big deal for a guy who built his whole life around making money. Trump put his sons, Don Jr. and Eric, in charge of the Trump Organization. He said he was stepping back, but a lot of people wondered if he really did. Here's something crazy. Trump decided to donate his entire presidential salary. That's $400,000 a year he gave away. Sounds pretty noble, right? But here's the thing. Trump was still the owner of all his businesses. He just wasn't supposed to be running them day to day. This setup made a lot of people mad. They said it was a huge conflict of interest. How could the president own all these businesses while making decisions that could affect them? Trump kept saying he was losing money by being president. He'd tell anyone who'd listen that the job was costing him billions. But was Trump really losing cash? His golf courses were busier than ever. Mar-a-Lago, his Florida resort, became known as the Winter White House. Membership fees there doubled after he became president. That doesn't sound like losing money to me. And get this, foreign diplomats started staying at Trump hotels all the time. The Trump International Hotel in DC became the place to be if you wanted to get close to power. Some countries even held their embassy parties there. People thought if they stayed at Trump's hotels, they might get on his good side. Things got even more complicated when government agencies started spending money at Trump properties. The Secret Service had to rent golf carts just to keep up with Trump on his courses. They spent over $550,000 on golf cart rentals alone during his presidency. The White House lifestyle, living large on taxpayer money? Trump moved into the White House, and let me tell you, it's a pretty sweet deal. The president gets all kinds of perks, like a personal chef whipping up gourmet meals 24/7, a private jet that's basically a flying office, and helicopters ready to go at a moment's notice. And the best part? It's all on the government's dime. But Trump? He wasn't about to change his luxury lifestyle just because he became president. Instead of hanging out at the White House like most presidents, Trump spent way more time at his own properties. Mar-a-Lago, his fancy Florida resort, became like a second White House. He called it the Winter White House and visited it over 30 times during his presidency. But these trips weren't cheap. Every time Trump went to Mar-a-Lago, it cost taxpayers millions. The Secret Service had to rent rooms, equipment, and even golf carts just to keep up with him. Speaking of golf, Trump played a lot of it. like way more than other presidents. He visited his golf properties over 300 times during his 4 years in office. The Secret Service spent over $550,000 just on golf cart rentals to follow him around the courses. That's a lot of cash for little electric cars. But Mar-a-Lago wasn't the only Trump property getting presidential attention. He stayed at his Bedminster Golf Club in New Jersey for weeks at a time during the summer. And don't forget about Trump Tower in New York. The Secret Service had to rent a whole floor there for $130,000 a month, just in case Trump decided to pop in. All this traveling and golfing added up fast. Some estimates say Trump's trips to his own properties cost taxpayers over $140 million. That's enough to buy a whole fleet of private jets or a small island. And get this, a lot of that money went right back into Trump's businesses. Every time he stayed at a Trump property, the government had to pay for rooms, food, and other expenses. Some people were pretty mad about all this spending. They said Trump was using the presidency to make money for his businesses. But Trump didn't seem to care. He kept going to his properties and playing golf, even when people criticized him for it. So was Trump saving money or spending more as president? It's hard to say for sure, but it looks like he might have come out ahead. Yeah, he gave up his $400,000 presidential salary, but that's nothing compared to what his businesses made from all those government-funded visits. Plus, all that time at Mar-a-Lago, it was like free advertising for his resort. The Trump Hotel in D.C., a golden opportunity. Trump's D.C. hotel wasn't just any old building, it was the old post office, a historic landmark right on Pennsylvania Avenue. When Trump got his hands on it, he turned it into something else entirely. We're talking luxury suites, a massive lobby with crystal chandeliers, and a big old clock tower with killer views of the city. But here's where things get crazy. As soon as Trump became president, this hotel became the hottest spot in town. Like, seriously hot. Foreign officials were booking rooms left and right. Lobbyists were hanging out at the bar every night. It was like everyone thought staying there would get them on Trump's good side. The hotel was raking in cash like you wouldn't believe. In just 4 months after Trump took office, it made $18 million in revenue. That's a lot of room service, folks. The place was charging way more than other fancy hotels in D.C., but people were still lining up to stay there. But not everyone was happy about this. Some folks said it was straight-up corruption. They thought foreign governments were trying to buy favor with Trump by spending money at his hotel. And let's be real, it sure looked that way. The Saudi government spent $270,000 there in just one visit. That's a whole lot of room upgrades. Trump said he wasn't involved in the hotel's business anymore. He handed it over to his sons, remember? But come on, his name was still on the building, and everyone knew it was his place. Plus, he kept visiting the hotel for dinners and events. It's not like he was staying away. The hotel became a symbol of Trump's presidency. Some people loved it, others hated it, but everyone was talking about it. It was like a big, shiny reminder that Trump was a businessman first, president second. But was all this legal? That's the million-dollar question, or maybe the billion-dollar question, because that's how much money was involved. Some lawyers said it violated the Constitution's emoluments clause. That's a fancy way of saying presidents aren't supposed to profit from foreign governments. There were lawsuits about it, investigations, the whole 9 yards, but nothing really stuck. Trump kept the hotel open throughout his presidency, and it kept making money, a lot of money. In the end, Trump's D.C. hotel was more than just a place to stay. It was a power hub, a money-making machine, and a big old controversy all rolled into one. Whether you think it was genius or corrupt, one thing's for sure, it definitely changed the game in Washington. Trump's golf courses, presidential playground. If you thought Trump's hotel was a cash cow, wait till you hear about his golf courses. How did the president's favorite pastime turn into a multi-million-dollar operation that had everyone talking? Trump loves golf, like really loves it. And as president, he played a lot. But here's the thing, he always played at his own courses, Mar-a-Lago, Bedminster, you name it. If Trump owned it, he was there. And every time he visited, it was like free advertising for his golf empire. These courses were making more money than ever. Mar-a-Lago's membership fees doubled to $200,000 after Trump became president. That's some serious cash just to rub elbows with the commander-in-chief. And Bedminster? It became known as the Summer White House because Trump spent so much time there. But it wasn't just Trump hitting the links. The Secret Service had to stay at these places too. Guess who paid for that? Yep, the taxpayers. The government spent over $550,000 just on golf cart rentals to follow Trump around the courses. That's a whole lot of little electric cars. Trump said he was working on these trips, but was he really? He visited his golf properties over 300 times during his 4 years in office. That's way more than any other president. Obama played 333 rounds of golf in 8 years. Trump? He blew past that number in just 4. His golf habit was costing taxpayers millions. Some estimates put the total cost of Trump's golf trips at over $140 million. That's enough to buy a whole fleet of Air Force Ones. But while taxpayers were footing the bill, Trump's courses were cashing in. Every time Trump visited one of his golf clubs, it got tons of media attention. That's publicity you can't buy. And people were lining up to play where the president played. Trump's courses in Scotland and Ireland saw their revenues jump after he became president. But it wasn't all hole-in-ones for Trump's golf empire. Some of his courses, like the one in Los Angeles, actually lost money during his presidency. And let's not forget about the controversy. People were mad that Trump was spending so much time and money on golf when he promised he'd be too busy to play. The Trump kids cashing in on dad's fame? While Trump was living it up in the White House, his kids weren't exactly sitting on their hands. They were busy making moves and cashing in on the family name. Ivanka and Jared became White House advisors, but they didn't ditch their businesses. Don Jr. and Eric, they were running the Trump Organization, and business was booming. But here's where things get messy. The lines between politics and business got real blurry, real fast. Ivanka was getting patents from China faster than you can say trade war. She got 18 of them approved in just 2 months while her dad was president. Coincidence? Maybe, but it sure looks fishy. And it ain't just Ivanka. The Trump boys were wheeling and dealing all over the world. They were opening golf courses in Dubai and selling condos to rich foreigners, all while their dad was making decisions that could affect these deals. Talk about a conflict of interest. People were freaking out about all this. They thought the Trump kids were using the White House like their personal ATM. But the Trumps? They said everything was cool. No problems here, folks. Just business as usual. Ivanka and Jared made at least $82 million in outside income during their first year as White House advisors. That's a whole lot of cash for people supposedly focused on government work. They had stakes in over 200 companies, all while working on policy that could affect those businesses. Don Jr. and Eric were supposed to be running the Trump Organization without Dad's input, but they were constantly defending their father's policies and attacking his enemies. It's like they forgot they weren't supposed to be involved in politics. The Trump kids weren't just making money, they were living large too. Ivanka and Jared spent $5.5 million on a house in D.C., right near all the political action. And Don Jr., he bought a $4.5 million house in the Hamptons. Not bad for a couple of kids whose dad says he's losing money as president. But it ain't all private jets and caviar. The Trump kids got hit with some serious heat for their business dealings. They had to shut down their charity because they were using it like a personal piggy bank. And Ivanka's fashion brand, she had to close it down because of all the boycotts. So were the Trump kids using the White House to get rich? It's hard to say for sure, but one thing's clear. Being the president's kid definitely has its perks. Whether it's fast-tracked patents, sweet business deals, or just a ton of media attention, the Trump kids were riding high on their dad's fame. Love 'em or hate 'em, you got to admit, they know how to work the system. Trump's taxes, the $750 mystery. From gold-plated penthouses to $750 tax bills, Trump's finances are full of surprises. But here's the real kicker. While his kids were raking in millions, Trump himself claimed massive losses. Was the billionaire president actually broke? Or was there something else going on behind those tax returns he fought so hard to keep secret? Trump's taxes were a huge deal during his presidency. He didn't want to release them, which made everyone wonder what he was hiding. Most presidents share their tax returns, but Trump? Nah, he wasn't having it. He said he was under audit, but that didn't stop people from asking questions. Then in 2020, the New York Times dropped a bombshell. They got their hands on Trump's tax returns and found out he only paid $750 in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017. That's less than what most Americans pay. How does a billionaire end up with such a tiny tax bill? It's complicated, but basically, Trump's businesses reported huge losses that offset his income. Trump said he was just being smart and using the tax laws to his advantage. But a lot of people weren't buying it. They thought he was cheating the system. Some even called for investigations into his finances. It was a big mess, and it followed Trump throughout his presidency. But here's the thing, was being president actually good for Trump's taxes? Some of his businesses, like his hotels and golf courses, were losing money. But was it on purpose? Some people think Trump might have been inflating his losses to pay less in taxes. It's a strategy called tax avoidance. And while it's legal, it's definitely controversial. The whole tax thing became a huge controversy. Democrats in Congress tried to get their hands on Trump's tax returns, but he fought them every step of the way. It went all the way to the Supreme Court, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. A president fighting to keep his taxes secret. That's not something you see every day. But what was Trump really hiding? Some people think he might not be as rich as he claims. Others think he might have some shady business deals he doesn't want people to know about. And some folks think he might be in debt to foreign countries, which could be a big problem for a president. The tax returns showed that Trump had hundreds of millions in loans coming due during his presidency. That's a lot of debt for anyone, even a billionaire. And it raised questions about who he owed money to and if it could influence his decisions as president. The Trump Foundation, charity or slush fund. Trump's charity game, not exactly a slam dunk. The Trump Foundation sounded legit, but it was shadier than a palm tree on a beach. This so-called charity was more like Trump's personal piggy bank. Get this, Trump used the foundation's money to buy stuff for himself. We're talking a $10,000 portrait of himself hanging in one of his golf clubs. Yeah, you heard that right. Charity cash for a giant Trump face. But that ain't even the craziest part. Trump also used the foundation's money for political stuff. He gave $25,000 to a group supporting Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi's campaign. That's a big no-no for charities. They're not supposed to get mixed up in politics. But Trump? He didn't seem to care about the rules. The New York Attorney General wasn't having any of it. They sued Trump and his family in 2018, saying they used the foundation like it was their own wallet. The lawsuit claimed Trump used $258,000 from the charity to settle legal problems for his businesses. That's like using your kid's piggy bank to pay off a speeding ticket. But it gets even wilder. The foundation held a fundraiser for veterans during Trump's 2016 campaign. Sounds nice, right? But the Trump campaign controlled where the money went. They used it to boost Trump's image as a candidate. That's not what charity's supposed to be about. The whole thing blew up in Trump's face. He had to shut down the foundation and pay a $2 million fine. His kids, Don Jr., Ivanka, and Eric, had to take classes on how to run a charity properly. Talk about a family field trip gone wrong. The timing of all this, pretty crazy. This mess was going down right before Trump became president. He was getting ready to run the country while his charity was falling apart. It's like trying to become team captain when you're about to get kicked off the team. In the end, the Trump Foundation turned out to be more of a slush fund than a real charity. It was supposed to help people, but it mostly helped Trump. He used it to buy art, settle lawsuits, and boost his political career. That's not exactly what you'd call generous. This whole charity scandal showed a different side of Trump's money game. It wasn't just about making cash. It was about using other people's money for his own benefit. And it cost him big time. A $2 million fine ain't chump change, even for a billionaire. Trump's debts, the billion-dollar question. From questionable charity to questionable debt. Trump's financial situation is like a high-stakes game of Jenga. One wrong move and the whole thing could come crashing down. How much does he really owe, and to whom? The answers might surprise you. So Trump's loaded, right? But get this, he also owes a ton of cash. We're talking hundreds of millions, maybe even billions. And a big chunk of that debt was coming due while he was sitting in the Oval Office. Talk about pressure. Trump owed money all over the place. Deutsche Bank was one of his biggest lenders, with loans worth over $300 million. But that ain't all. He had debts with Wall Street firms, foreign banks, and maybe even some shady characters we don't know about. People were freaking out about all this debt. They were worried foreign countries could use it to pull Trump's strings. Like, imagine if China owned a bunch of Trump's debt. That could get real messy real quick when you're trying to negotiate trade deals. But Trump? He was cool as a cucumber. He kept saying the debt was no big deal. He could pay it off anytime he wanted, no sweat. But here's the thing. Being president made it way harder to get new loans. Banks ain't exactly lining up to lend money to someone who's got the whole world watching their every move. So how did Trump handle all this debt while running the country? It wasn't easy. He had to get creative. Some of his properties, like his DC hotel, were making bank. That helped cover some of the bills. But others, like his golf courses, were losing money left and right. Trump tried to sell some of his properties to pay off debt. He even put his DC hotel up for sale. But finding buyers ain't easy when you're the president and everyone's worried about conflicts of interest. The whole debt situation was like a dark cloud hanging over Trump's presidency. People were always wondering if his financial problems were influencing his decisions. Like, was he being nice to certain countries because they owned his debt? It's the kind of question that keeps conspiracy theorists up at night. The pandemic effect. Trump's businesses take a hit. We all know COVID was bad, but for Trump it was a financial disaster. His net worth dropped faster than the stock market. But here's the crazy part. Not all his properties were bleeding cash. Some were actually raking it in during lockdown. How's that even possible? So 2020 hits and bam, pandemic. Trump's fancy hotels, empty. His golf courses, closed. His casinos, shut down. It was like someone turned off the money faucet overnight. Trump's net worth took a massive hit. We're talking $1 billion drop. That's enough to make even a billionaire sweat. Trump's hotel empire got hit hard. The Trump International Hotel in Washington, D.C., revenue down 63%. His Vegas hotel, down 61%. The Trump International Hotel and Tower in Chicago, it lost a whopping $2.7 million in 2020. That's a lot of empty rooms and unpaid bills. But here's where it gets weird. Not all of Trump's properties were losing money. Mar-a-Lago, still making bank. How? Because that's where Trump was hanging out all the time. It became like a second White House. Members were paying big bucks just to maybe catch a glimpse of the president. And get this, some of Trump's golf courses actually did okay. His courses in Scotland and Ireland, they got millions in government bailouts. That's right, foreign governments were helping keep Trump's businesses afloat. Talk about international relations. But overall, COVID was bad news for Trump's wallet. He was losing money while trying to run the country. His company had to lay off over 1,500 employees. They even tried to pause payments on some of their loans. It was that bad. The pandemic hit Trump's brand hard too. Remember when staying at a Trump hotel was a status symbol? Not anymore. Some buildings were even taking the Trump name off their facades. It's like his name went from gold to mud overnight. But here's the big question. Did being president help or hurt Trump during the pandemic? On one hand, he couldn't really focus on his businesses while dealing with a global crisis. On the other hand, he got to spend taxpayer money at his own properties every time he visited them. Post-presidency, Trump's financial comeback. Trump might be out of the White House, but he ain't out of the game. His brand, still worth millions. Maybe even more now that he's been president. People are still obsessed with him, love him, or hate him. He's got this new social media platform called Truth Social. It's like Twitter, but for Trump fans. And it's making waves. The company that owns it, its stock price shot up like crazy. We're talking billions in market value. Trump owns a big chunk of that, so he's sitting pretty. But that's nothing compared to his speaking gigs. Trump's charging big bucks for rallies and speeches. We're talking $250,000 to $500,000 per event, and people are paying it. He's doing these American Freedom Tour events all over the country, raking in cash. Trump's got other money-making schemes too. He's selling these digital trading cards like baseball cards, but with Trump doing superhero stuff. They sold out in hours, making him millions. And his books? They're flying off the shelves. Our Journey Together, his photo book, made $20 million in just 2 months. But it ain't all good news for Trump's wallet. He's got legal troubles coming out of his ears. Lawsuits, investigations, you name it. Those lawyer bills, they ain't cheap. He spent millions on legal fees already, and it's not stopping anytime soon. Some banks don't want to work with Trump anymore. Deutsche Bank, his go-to lender for years, cut ties with him. That's a problem when you've got hundreds of millions in loans coming due. But Trump's always got something up his sleeve. He's refinanced some of his properties, getting new loans to pay off old ones. His real estate empire? It's a mixed bag. Some properties are doing great, others not so much. He sold his DC hotel for $375 million, making a nice profit. But his golf courses? Some are losing money big time. So is Trump richer or poorer after being president? It's complicated. His net worth dropped while he was in office, but now it's bouncing back. Forbes says he's worth about $3 billion now. That's up from $2.4 billion in 2021, but still lower than before he became president. In the end, Trump's financial comeback is a work in progress. He's got his brand, his loyal fans, and his business savvy, but he's also got legal troubles, debt, and a tarnished reputation in some circles. One thing's for sure, Trump's always going to find a way to make money, whether it's through real estate, social media, or selling $99 digital trading cards. He's not about to go broke anytime soon. The final tally. Did the presidency make Trump richer? So here's the big question everyone's been asking. Did Trump get richer as president? Well, it ain't a simple yes or no answer. Trump's finances are more twisted than a pretzel. Let's break it down. Trump's net worth definitely went up during his presidency. Forbes says he was worth about $3.1 billion when he took office, and now he's sitting pretty at $3.7 billion. That's a $600 million jump. Not too shabby, right? But hold up, was it 'cause of the presidency? That's where things get tricky. Some of Trump's businesses took a serious hit while he was in office. His hotels, they were losing money left and right. The Trump International Hotel in DC lost over $70 million during his presidency. His golf courses, some of them were bleeding cash too. But here's the thing, Trump's brand got bigger than ever. Being president made him even more famous, or infamous, depending on who you ask. And that fame, it's worth serious money. Trump's been cashing in on his name since he left office. He's selling digital trading cards, doing speaking gigs, and even started his own social media platform. All that stuff is making him millions. Trump lost some big deals when he became president. He had to put all these international projects on hold. Hotels in China, office towers in India, all that potential cash went poof. But he gained a whole new army of fans and customers. People are still lining up to stay at his hotels and play at his golf courses just to be close to the Trump brand. Now let's talk about those legal troubles. They're costing Trump big time. He spent millions on lawyers and it ain't stopping anytime soon. He's got lawsuits and investigations coming at him from all directions. That's gotta hurt the wallet. But even with all that, Trump's still mega rich. He might have lost $1 billion during the pandemic, but he's bouncing back. His net worth is climbing again, and he's still one of the richest ex-presidents ever. In the end, Trump's finances are more complicated than a Rubik's Cube. He made money in some ways, lost it in others. But one thing's for sure, being president changed Trump's financial game forever. He might have lost some business deals, but he gained a whole new level of fame and influence. And in Trump's world, that's worth its weight in gold. Love him or hate him, you gotta admit, Trump's presidency was one wild ride for his wallet. He went from billionaire businessman to commander-in-chief and back again, and somehow he came out the other side even richer than before. Only Trump could pull that off.